Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture. This is season 2, and I have with me Breaux Keller. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure is all mine. I'm glad you hit me up. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Yeah, no, I am very excited too because I've seen you wrestle, and I'm seen you in the DMV area. I've seen you in Nova, Primetime, Flying V, and then obviously I've seen you just around IWTV and a few other places. And so I'm super excited because I've actually seen you wrestle in person, then I've seen you wrestle through my computer at the same time. So it's kind of cool because it's a very different experience. And I do want to talk about the last 2 years because I think you've been killing it. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about sort of the last 5 years in wrestling because that's really how long you've been in. And I'm really curious how you got into the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started, it was the end of 2016, actually. So it was October something or other where I actually debuted for ACW, Atomic Championship Wrestling, up here in Pennsylvania. It's like right off the turnpike, Denver, PA. And Twisted Tate, it's his promotion. At the time, it was him and LaFisto running it, but she has since gone back up to Canada. Twisted Tate's still here. And I believe he's actually trying to get some shows running in March. So anybody in the area, March rolls around, keep an eye out. I think some stuff's going to happen. But no, funny story. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Jamie Senegal, but
I love Jamie.
yeah, you love Jamie?
Jamie has been on this show.
Oh,
And
even better then. So
Jamie,
you're familiar.
Jamie's the best, except that there's a funny story with Jamie, and I got to tell, and I don't think Jamie's going to mind. So Jamie's like, you can call me anything, just call me trash. And I'm like, I can't do that professionally. And I'm like, and it's so, anybody who knows Jamie, and I don't think Jamie's going to mind me saying and telling that story, but anybody who knows Jamie knows exactly how that conversation goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's incredible because we hit it off pretty quick. My brother was dating Jamie for a little bit. And it was a point like you can even kind of see right now. I'm a noodle. I'm just a big old noodle. So I never thought I actually had the size to wrestle. And it was at a time where there was a little bit of a transition because Daniel Bryan was starting to make a name for himself, CM Punk. It bothers me all the time when people always look back in the day. They're like, oh, yeah, Bret Hart was undersized. Shawn Michaels was undersized. Dude, those guys were like 6'1", 6'2", like 240 pounds. They were not undersized. They were stacked. So I'm tall. I'm probably taller than them, but I don't have the weight that they had. But as we're seeing nowadays, there's a little bit more of a transition with professional wrestling. It's not necessarily these big old body guys. We can get some more athletic types, which I don't want to like toot my own horn or anything, but if I were to describe my style, I think it would be more of an athletic style. I'm not necessarily a high flyer. I'm not a muscle man, but like I do think I can present like an athletic style when I'm in the ring. So yeah, through my brother dating Jamie, he really connected us and was like, hey, if you want to do this, I'll just hit Jamie up. We'll see what we can make happen. And we had a bonfire literally that night. And we continued the conversation, got a DM from Jamie then, and was like, hey, you're coming with me tomorrow. Meet here. We're going to go wrestle. So I'm just saying, it was literally, I didn't even have a choice. Like, I was pushed into it, which is, in hindsight, kind of what I needed. Because the whole reason I kind of had this void, if you will, in terms of competing or being a professional wrestler or whatever it might have been, was like my senior year of college. I went to the national meet and made the finals, got sixth place, which I was proud of. That's all American status. Awesome. Until probably 3 minutes after I crossed the finish line, an official comes up to me and they checked my name tag, my bib number, and they were like, you're disqualified. So I was like, what? Blew my mind off. Wasn't ready for that at all. I thought they were going to say, yeah, over here's the podium. Go to where you need to be. So that for a while really like stuck inside of me. And I did have this void that I mentioned, and I really needed something to fill it, to get my competitive juices flowing. And this little nudge at a bonfire to go to wrestling practice the following day was really what got the ball rolling. So met up with Jamie the next day. We went to Twisted Tate's house because Atomic is actually where I started training. So really, we set the ring up in his yard. It was a hot summer day when we started. It was like the end of summer. And we got to rolling around. And they showed me how to bump on the ropes. And we really did just hit the ground running. So big props to Twisted Tate. Big props to my brother. And big props to Jamie Senegal for really setting all of my wrestling career in motion. It's what I needed, and I appreciate it.
So to even talk about that, because we're going to talk about Atomic, because that's where a bulk of your career has been in a second, but you hit the ground running. So what was that like, the physical side of it? And then I'm going to take a leap of faith here. Sort of the mental side of wrestling sort of came probably secondary versus the physical side. So what was that even just like running and going and sort of just, this is happening and it's happening now and you're just going to learn it? And because this isn't the traditional sense of training in many ways.
Right. And you're spot on, because there are two aspects that I don't think people really take into consideration, where, you know, you do have the physical side, but also there's a mental toll that it does take on you. And I think the physical side, that came kind of naturally. Ran track through college, played football through college. Like that, I was ready to go. All right, cool. You want me to run? Easy. Are we going to hit each other? Cool. We've done that millions of times already. So that was fine. I was totally okay with that. But there is a soreness that you don't necessarily expect after like the first few days. And it doesn't go away. It lingers until you get like really calloused up, if you will. I remember, I'll have to find it. I could probably send you a picture, but I had, you've probably seen them before too, but just these like black and blue stripes across my back from where I was hitting the ropes. And,
I know enough about it. I used to spar in martial arts, so
so you get it.
I know what it's like to get hit. I know what it's like to be concussed too. So there you go.
Which is not fun. CTE is a real thing. Protect your head, kids.
There's been a few days where I've been hit hard enough and I don't know who I am, and you could tell. So
for sure. When you see those stars, boom, you know instantly, all right, we got to collect ourselves. But yeah, the whole mental aspect of it, that was something that I wasn't ready for, because I just thought, okay, cool. I'll walk in, I'll train for a week. Let's have a show. But really, there's so much more to that. And I know that sounds arrogant going into it, but I was dumb. I didn't know any better. I just knew I love wrestling. I think I can do the physical aspect pretty well. Let's just do this. But as like you continue to train and you learn the infinite moves that exist, the infinite combinations that exist, how to piece a match together, how to connect with an audience, how to like work with different people, that you could be in the ring with somebody that you met that afternoon, and you have to really put faith and trust in them that they're going to protect you, and vice versa. And you're making all these new acquaintances at every show. There's just so much that goes into it, let alone, you know, other people politicking for their positions, or if maybe you do something that they weren't able to do in their career, they then hold that against you as if you're at fault. So it's a balancing act, and you really just have to, I don't know, try to understand that when you go into it. And I don't know, I'm just a big believer in being a good dude. And like, you see all these guys in the locker room, all these girls in the locker room, and I've been lucky enough to be with so many good people. And it's been such a privilege to work with the people that I've worked with and share locker rooms with who I've shared locker rooms with. So I'm forever grateful for that. But just like really carrying that forward is probably the biggest factor, because if you're an ass, nobody's going to want to work with you. And then that's just going to deter you from getting bookings down the road, getting opponents that, you know, you're going to boost each other's career moving up. So it really is just trying to gather like a good broad understanding of all of that, and just trying to be a nice human.
Yeah, I think that's something people don't understand, is that there is also the mental side of selling and all that, but then there's a whole business side that, you know, if you're just a fan on the surface, you cannot understand what it's like to be in a locker room. Like, I've never been in a wrestling locker room, but I have an idea because I get it and I understand it after speaking to enough people. And then obviously things leak out eventually. and
Right.
if you know what to look for, and not to get too in depth. And I'm sure people can go find examples on Twitter if they really want to.
Totally.
And you can legitimately pick. There's like 20 examples that come to the top of my head. And I'm sure most of
Oh,
the
yeah.
examples I have in my head are in your head too.
For sure.
And so they're not hard to find if you know what you're looking for. And so that's something that I think is also interesting. And then I had Sahara 7 on, and obviously she came in a different era where obviously girls were being bitchy to each other in a locker room, which is a whole different element than men in a locker room by nature, because women and men do not treat each other the same way in a locker room. They do not. And call me
No.
sexist, that's fine, but I'm just stating a fact.
Yeah, it's wild because it really does. It's a whole different world in the locker room, and it's such like an intimate space, depending on where you're at. And I mean, for the most part, a lot of these shows, it's like, hey, there's an extra room in the back where you guys can set up, or hey, there's some closet space. Try to dive in there and get changed and whatnot. So you're really kind of put into this small area with a relatively large group of people, and for the most part, other large humans taking up more space than others. And like that's where so much of the connectivity comes from too, because we're all in there. We have the same goals in mind, at least we should. And that's a whole other rant that I could go on about. I just I feel like sometimes people try to play wrestler and they don't necessarily want to put in all the work that is needed or take it as seriously as they could or should. And it's kind of frustrating because there are moments I've had with some of those people where I've felt like my physical well-being was put at risk. And that's an uncomfortable feeling. But that's a whole nother story aside. We won't dive into that. But you're in this locker room, a lot of personalities. You can see how everybody interacts with each other, especially when you're going to a new show and maybe like a new state or a new area. And all these people kind of know each other and you're the newbie. It's like, all right, how am I going to fit in here? Who can I talk to? Who can I get to know? But for the most part, like I love getting to meet all these new people, all these different walks of life. They all have different stories and whatnot. So it's just a very fun experience hearing, who's all done what, where they've been, and just really how they got to where they are.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about a bunch of these people and all this fun stuff. So let's dive into Atomic Wrestling, because I think that's
Please, yeah.
so obviously you and Twisted Tate pretty much worked an on and off program. I think it is the safest way to put it.
Oh, yeah.
The two of you have had countless matches all throughout the 5 years you've been involved in Atomic Wrestling. And I believe he was your first match. So what was that entire match like, the first round, and then even building off of that? Because obviously you have a connection. He's your trainer. And then on top of that, you're in good hands to some degree because your trainer knows you well. Obviously, they're carrying you on your first few matches, and they're making sure that, you're not going to fuck it up and you're not going to get hurt, most likely.
Right. And that was the biggest thing is we wanted to – I mean, there was such a blood feud, if you will, between him and I because, like you just said, he was the trainer, I was the student. Like that within itself, that's the storyline. Everybody can connect to that. Like, all right, here we go. The sensei and the grasshopper, So it was fun. Honestly, that was one of the most excited I've ever been for a match. Obviously, it was my first match, so I was super pumped for it. But there was a level of anxiety, some nerves, because you don't know how some of these people are going to react. I'm a new face. They don't know me. They don't know my personality. They've seen Twisted Tate for like 15 years in that venue, so they're all familiar with him. And even if he was playing a bad guy, heel, if you will, it's just nobody knew who I was. They didn't want to connect with me. When my music hit, I came out, and they're like, what? Who's this guy? I I will say, though, I was super lucky because I think I had about 30 or 35 people from work that I knew come to the event, and most of them were a surprise. I was expecting, like, I don't know, maybe 10. But they packed that place out. They made, like, their own custom T-shirts. It was incredible. So when my music hit, I was nervous that nobody was going to react. But, of course, I had all of them there. and they lost their minds. Their brains were blowing up, which made it so much easier, and it put me immediately like at ease. I was like, all right, we can do this. They're behind me, so at worst, I have the people that I know cheering for me. But just naturally human nature, when these other people that don't know me, they hear all of them going nuts. They're like, oh, this guy must be something. Whether I was or wasn't, it didn't matter. But that's immediately where your brain goes. So they're like, oh, this guy must be something. So then they kind of caught on. And that just helped us further develop and tell our story, because these people were cheering me. The good guy, the white meat baby face, he was out here ready to fight, going against like the heel bad dude trainer that just wanted to beat his student up and show him / teach him a lesson. So it was awesome. I loved it. I had so much fun. And I think we really did have, for like a first match, we had a pretty darn good match. And I just appreciate him taking care of me in there. It's like you said, between moves and spots, it was just kind of like a little whisper here and there, like, boom, let's keep doing this. Let's keep going. And I got to say, I don't know if it's just his talent in the ring or if we really do have that chemistry, but everything just felt like it flowed pretty smoothly. So I really thank Twisted Tate a lot for taking care of me in there. And to your point from a moment ago, we had a few other battles then down the line, if you will. Like, I think the next show we wrestled each other, and then we wrestled each other the third time at the following show. Then we had like a 6-man. It was a whole bunch. And
so let's talk about that 6-man, because that 6-man was wild. It was for the ACW heavyweight title.
Oh yeah,
you won that title, just so everybody's aware. And a lot of people were in there. So we had people like Suicide Myers was in there. We obviously had Louis G. Rich was in there. Robbie Illuminati was in there. Scotty Jeffries was in there. And so obviously a bunch of people were in this match. And here you are. You're still relatively new. You know, I think this was maybe this was 6 months in, I think, or a year in at the very least. And now you have this title. So what was that entire experience like? Because obviously this company had some faith in you.
Yeah, and that was something I felt. Let me digress. So probably a week before that show, Twisted Tate calls me up, and I guess we're forgetting kayfabe here, but he told me, he's like, hey man, I think we're going to do this. Like, we're going to go for it. And I'm an emotional guy. Like, I really wear my emotions on my sleeve. So for the most part, people know how I'm feeling all the time. And I started welling up, because when he said that, it's not like the real world, like NFL, NBA, you know what I mean? Like, when you win a championship, of course, you've beat all the competition. You know what was out there. You took them down. But for this, it just showed me that, hey, I've been doing something right. I've been showing up to training. I've been working my ass off, really trying to make sure that I can be as good as I can be. And he saw something in me. He had enough faith in me that I would be able to, defend this title and hold it with honor, and actually, not lower its value, and hopefully either maintain its value or raise its value. So for him to have had that confidence in me to actually pull that off, I was very honored, but also it was humbling, because there's a lot of other people out there that have wrestled for the title, that, wanted to be a champion, still want to be a champion. And for me to have gotten that when I did, I know it rubbed some people the wrong way. And we made that comment earlier, part of the politics, part of the personalities. Not everybody's going to be happy because some dude who's only been wrestling for 6 months won this title. They're going to get a little butthurt about it. And I kind of get that, but also to what we're saying, it's like, I wasn't just some slouch that rolled off of the couch and was like, yeah, I'm going to be your champion now. No, like, I worked hard for that. I put in the time. I put in the effort, like whether it's diet, going to the gym, going to training, trying to do promos and whatnot. It's just, there's so much that goes into it. And if that rubbed people the wrong way, I'm sorry they felt that way. But at the same time, what am I going to say? No, thank you. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. You can keep it. I'm all right. So it was what it was for some people, but I think a lot of other people, they appreciated it. And there were a lot of good personalities that actually helped me along the way. So after it happened, it was like advice from this guy. Maybe this woman was giving me some tips on how to do this as a champion, how to present yourself, how to carry yourself. So there's like a whole rabbit hole we could go down with that. But in that evening, that night, I had a busted up ankle, and I pulled my groin as well. So we had to like really rig that match around that. So we battled outside for a bit, which is a blast, but then came in, and I mean, it was so much fun. And just to hear the room react the way it did, that gave me confidence in myself, which at the time I really needed, because you second guess yourself so much as a professional wrestler. Even really anybody in entertainment, I feel like there's a level of second guessing or doubt. But when you get that 1, 2, 3 and everybody reacts the way that they did, that really kind of just reassures you like, hey, keep doing what you're doing, keep working. It's clearly going somewhat in the right direction.
Yeah, and then I think this entire match and you capturing the belt and then the amazing title defenses. I'm just going to go through a list really quickly. Twisted Tate, obviously, you defended against Robbie E., who was in Impact and killed it in Impact, and then he's doing well in WWE right now.
Mm-hmm.
Red Scorpion, Jason Glory with Red Scorpion, Nick Burke, Tim Donce, who is very much DMV, Pennsylvania, that area, and the two
Love
of you.
Don.
He's so good. He looks like my sister's husband, but that's a different discussion. So hopefully he and she are not watching this, because that'd be really bad if they were. Consider that this is live, so clearly we all know where I stand on
right.
And then obviously you dropped the belt to Louis G. Rich in the 2 out of 3s match, but that match was crazy in of itself.
Fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so what was it like going up against all these people? Because obviously, I just sort of name dropped a bunch of people just there, and obviously these title defenses weren't, amateur is the word that comes to mind, weren't bad. They were like sort of raising the bar in many ways with each one.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, with all those names and all those different wrestlers, and you could look at them, line them up beside each other, and you can see clearly they're all different body types. And if you watch some of their footage, clearly they all have different styles of wrestling. And then you look at their careers, they all have different experience levels. And I was just so lucky to have such an awesome list of different wrestlers to not only learn from, but just gain that experience that I needed. Because, yeah, we could sit in the back, we could talk, they could give me some words here and there. But once you get into the ring in front of people live, and it's just you two and a ref, or you three, we had a triple threat like you mentioned. It's just a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different world out there, because you're not you don't have the safety of being behind a wall, behind a curtain, actually talking to each other. You have to feel one another out. You have to trust each other. And when you're in the ring with all those different people, they can give you so many different lessons, whether it be different move sets, how to protect yourself when taking certain moves, how to do different new moves. It's so much fun getting to do that and learn from them, because especially for me at the time, within my first year, I had all those different opponents, and I don't know, I was very lucky that everything kind of lined up the way it did. And that 2 out of 3 falls count match with Louis G. Rich, that was just so much fun. And we had a blast and a half just talking about it in the back. And I love him. And he's doing so many great things now. I think he quasi-retired from wrestling. I want to say he's got a stepson named Lincoln who had a form of cancer. And he has just been such a support for that child and has put himself in a position now to help care for the kid and really put, everything that he can into making sure that kid lives a great life. So much respect for LGR and everything that he's doing right now. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun matches together. After that little battle, we wrestled around the area a good bit. So much fun. A lot of good battles with him.
And to even go further with a lot of battles and even more feuds, I guess, and people are going to react how they're going to react when I drop this name, but obviously Teddy Hart and you has some battles.
We
and
did.
some exchange victories over this title, very much. So what was it like working with Teddy Hart and having that? And obviously Teddy Hart at the time was a big name, and Teddy Hart is complicated as far as the politics, but putting aside everything that's going on with him and all of his problems, the guy is extremely talented as a wrestler.
Yeah, Teddy Hart is an enigma. He has like built such a name around his name.
You could be a bit of a pussy though, but I digress.
Oh, whoa! Okay, your words, not mine.
I mean, he does bring one to the ring.
Touche. That was clever. I appreciate what you did there. No, Teddy Hart, he is something else because we wrestled in Atomic, and then there's another promotion, PPW, up in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area, and we wrestled there once as well. He's so unique, and he is the only Teddy Hart. And I know that sounds very obvious, but it is the most sincere
Not though.
thing.
It's not at all. In which that
It's like,
and I say this because we say that about Orange Cassidy, and I know that you haven't had a match with Orange Cassidy, to my knowledge, but people say, "Oh, there's only Orange Cassidy is what Orange Cassidy is." There's only one Orange Cassidy. There's only one Teddy Hart. Where the style and the way Teddy Hart does things is so different than other people, and he's the original model. And there are people who copy elements of him, but they can't copy the whole package. Right. Meaning that there are wrestlers who have had their entire thing copied and then they've done it better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so Teddy Hart and what you just said it sounds obvious, but it's really not. And I want to highlight that point because as somebody who watches a lot of wrestling, there are certain people who are one of a kind and can't be copied.
For sure. And he's absolutely one of them. And like his name precedes himself. Like when you say Teddy Hart, you could probably talk to like 100 different people and all 100 of them will all relate probably some sort of different experience that they've had with the guy, which is what makes it even better because he's so unique and just so genuinely himself all the time. And I will say we've had some fun times in the ring too. The first time I've taken a Canadian Destroyer was from him, and that was times 3 because in our one match I took 3 of them, and that was so interesting. But no, I mean that's all you can say about the guy. He's just so genuinely him, and I feel like even every time we've had a match together or been in a locker room together, he's been super generous to me. Just in terms of like when we're putting our match together, what I can do, what he's okay with taking and whatnot. So I'm certainly grateful for that. But also just as a guy, he'll walk in, put his cat down, maybe do something, walk away. You're like, where did he go? Where's Teddy? Half an hour later rolls by. It's like, hey, we want to go over our match? He's like, oh, yeah. Let me just go ahead and do this thing real quick. Come back. Boom. Another half hour goes by. We'll chit-chat a little bit. And it's not even necessarily about the match at that point. It's like, oh, hey, I was doing this last weekend. What are you up to next weekend? And then we kind of just like piece the match together in between conversations. So it's like, that's the kind of guy he is. He just wants to chit-chat, get to know you, and then, oh, yeah, we're going to have a match as well. So let's maybe touch on that a little bit.
I could just imagine. That's great, though. That's absolutely wonderful. Because, and you probably don't even remember how you put the match together, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing, too. Like, he's definitely like a consummate professional. If there's something that maybe was forgotten or a slip up, he's got a way to recover everything, which is nice. So even if we're talking about this, that, and the other, and he maybe like there's a spot that we need to get back to in the ring, we'll always find a way with him. That's for sure.
And then speaking about unique individuals, we have to talk about G Raver.
Oh yeah, love that guy.
So G Raver is amazing. I think this was pre Jimmy Lloyd incident. I don't know if you
Absolutely.
caught what he just did to Jimmy Lloyd at GCW show, which was sick and savage. He said, "I'm not going to stop until you're handicapped like me," which I thought was insane.
Incredible.
And as
Yes.
someone with a disability, I just started laughing hysterically, which makes it even worse.
Right?
So you had 2 triple threat matches with G Raver involved, I think, and or maybe you had a singles match with G Raver, and then you had a triple threat with Savage Gentleman was also involved.
Wait a second. I gotta go back because I want to say it was with Rave. I want to say G Raver and
So
did
I'm
we have
missing
a trip?
something.
What's that?
Unless I'm missing something, I messed up.
Oh, we had a triple threat match at ACW. It was me, him, and
Savage Gentleman.
was it? Did we have a triple threat with Savage Gentleman?
Victor Benjamin is Savage Gentleman now.
He is. That is correct. I don't think. Are you messing with me? I think you're messing with me.
I don't know. Now I'm all confused.
Oh. I want to say it was like Jimmy Rave.
You had a match with Jimmy Rave too, and Savage Gentleman, I think, as well.
It was Jimmy Rave and G Raver, and then Savage Gentleman. I think we only ever had singles matches in ACW.
Maybe
Either
it was
way.
Jimmy Rave. Maybe it was Jimmy Rave, but I know that you had a match with G Raver. And I know
Yeah.
G Raver is savage. And G Raver is very much a deathmatch wrestler. And I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm assuming there's no deathmatch wrestling in your match with him.
That is correct. I will say, though, I did bleed in that match, which was pretty funny because I was not expecting that. It was not a death match, but walking to the back, I just had blood coming out of my ear down my face. And I shouldn't say out of my ear. It wasn't out of the inside, but like my ear lobe got cut. I don't know how. I don't know when, but it did. And to also somewhat set the record straight, G Raver is known for being a hardcore deathmatch guy, but that dude can go.
Guy is smooth.
He's so smooth. He's been all over. Like, I think when I wrestled him, he had just gotten back from either Mexico or Japan. And there were some things that he wanted to work on and like try to practice a little bit. And he can wrestle. Like, that guy can wrestle. He's got some sweet moves.
I think that's something that, for those who don't know, John Wade Murdoch was the wrestler of the year in indie wrestling. He won that award for a reason. And ICW is a very popular promotion right now because obviously all those people are deathmatch wrestlers.
Yep.
What people forget is that Akira, for instance, using him as an example, before deathmatch wrestling, he was a good wrestler. And he was a great wrestler, and he's great at deathmatch wrestling. And deathmatch wrestling does attract a certain audience. It also isn't political as other things are. And again, I don't want to get into the entire political debate, but there is definitely, we're just beating the shit out of each other in a ring type of deathmatch wrestling mentality versus other things that are out there. But all those people who are in the ring, a lot of them were good wrestlers before they got into deathmatch wrestling. And then the deathmatch wrestling is just a different environment, and you have a lot more tools to play with. And so that's why I wanted to talk about G Raver, because I think that's something that people don't realize is that they look down on deathmatch wrestlers, and they don't understand that they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
that's the thing too. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say like people should look down on deathmatch wrestling because by no means, should they at all? Because deathmatch wrestling, those guys that are so courageous and brave and put their bodies on the line, it's just so tough sometimes when like you put yourself into that category and like that's what you're known for. But I mean, it's one of a kind. So it's like if you have the guts to do it and you're totally willing and able, and like when you hear the audience reactions from like some of those spots and moves and when they go through these glass tables and stuff, like yeah, I can see why like some people would want to do that. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's a whole extravaganza. But I just feel like for me personally, that's not necessarily my style. Would I ever not do it? No. I mean, I'm definitely open to it if the opportunity presented itself. But at the same time, I don't think that's something that I would like. There's no longevity in that. You know what I mean? It's so tough to like. You're not going to necessarily follow somebody for 20 years as a deathmatch wrestler.
Look at Matt Tremont. Look at Matt Tremont. There's a reason why he retired, and he looks a lot older than he is.
I was going to say, is he even 30? I don't know.
I think he's 35.
Oh, is he? I'm way off on that then.
He's been doing this for like 15 years.
Jeez. But still, like, to that point, like, there's no longevity in it. Is it cool? Yeah. Are there times where it's called for? Absolutely. Is it awesome to watch? Yeah. When Joey Janela got dumped off of that roof through a burning barbed wire glass truck, that was nuts. But
Joey Janela's missing a few screws, and he's missing the right amount of screws for all of us.
Yes, that is exactly right. Because he's another guy, too, where like he understands there are moments for that, but then also I want to make sure I can actually wrestle, too. So he can actually go out there, put on matches that don't necessarily require tables, ladders, glass, light tubes, whatever it might be. So, yeah, it's tough to balance. I mean, bringing this full circle, like, much respect to the dudes that do it. I don't know if that's something that I could do very often.
So we're going to talk about two matches that definitely I think are closer to that end of the table with Primetime in a little bit. But I do want to talk about Savage Gentleman, Victor Benjamin, because obviously the guy's got an MMA background, you know, and he's another guy that I think is very much overlooked, underappreciated, doesn't really get the attention that he deserves, and that you've had a few matches with him. So what was it like going up against with him and running with him?
It's been great, and I can't say enough good things about him. Victor Benjamin is awesome. We hit it off from probably the first 2 minutes we met each other, which was actually down at Nova Pro, company that does not exist anymore, RIP.
For a lot of reasons.
Yes. There's a few reasons that go into that, but
everybody has a Nova story.
Everybody, honestly though, I don't. I mean, I've heard stories, and I can understand why maybe there have been some issues or disputes, but I don't want to sound like that guy. But for every time I've been down there, I had a pretty good experience, so I can't really complain.
Well,
I'm sorry to everybody that has had a bad experience because it didn't sound like fun.
At this point, everybody can shoot on them because they're not coming back. All those connections are dead, and Casey Cattell wound up shooting on my podcast on Nova and what happened. Much like Lufisto spent 45 minutes shooting on CCW on my podcast too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just standing there and I'm just like, great, and I knew exactly what's going to happen. So at this point, I understand on my level that both of those promotions, if they ever come back, I do not have a welcome seat there. It's clear to me.
All right.
It's clear to me for a variety of reasons, and a bunch of people also don't have welcome seats with me. But anyhow, I digress right there. But what I do like about Nova is that there was a lot of good stuff that came out of Nova, and they put on a lot of good matches. You know, obviously you faced Ace Perry a few times, and you had a match with Dan Housen, which is cool before he was Dan Housing. Lucas Calhoun.
That was literally, I did a podcast like a month ago. Maybe it was 2 months ago at this point. I don't know. COVID time frame has just got my brain all out of whack. But that was news to me because when I wrestled Danhausen, I didn't know who it was. And I was still pretty new at that point. And then when somebody told me that, I was like, wait a second. I wrestled who? We had a match? No way. So that was kind of funny to hear. I thought that was so great.
That's kind of.
It's serious, and it was like you said, it was before he was Danhausen. So I was like, I think it was something Hausen though. I forget what the name was at that time.
It's like Donovan Danhausen or something.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think
It was something like that. And then also what I like Nova did is the Sadie Hawkins tournament stuff.
so much fun.
Because
That was
I
the
love
happiest
Willow.
accident ever.
So how did you get teamed up with Willow? Obviously, I love Harlow O'Hara, Kevin Blackwood. Obviously, people know him. And your first round in that tournament was just crazy because you have Willow Nightingale, you have Harlow O'Hara, and you have Kevin Blackwood, and then there's you.
Yeah, and literally, that's what it was because at that point I was still relatively unknown. I'm not saying that, like at the time, I think that was probably my first show on the main roster. I think I was doing pre-show stuff before that. So I was supposed to be,
Which was a little ridiculous considering that you're doing a dark match on an indie show and it's still going to get released eventually onto some type of streaming platform. It made no sense to me. I never understood Nova and even other companies that do that. I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and like even to that point, like Danhausen and Ace Perry with myself in a triple threat, that was a dark match. That was like a pre-show match, and that's just more giving credit to those guys and the names that they've built for themselves. Like they're all over the place now, so it is pretty wild that happens. But again, like it's all I knew at that point. Like for me, this whole thing has just been one massive learning experience, and I think something that happens with, I'm not going to say a lot of wrestlers, but there are certainly a handful of wrestlers where they almost get ahead of themselves or they think like, oh, I should be here. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. When maybe they're not yet ready. Maybe they haven't necessarily earned that position with that company or with that roster. So for me, it was all I knew. Like, okay, new promotion. I would go down with Don's, great riding partner. And I would watch the show front to back, and you hear the reactions. The crowd's bananas. They got a few hundred people there. So it was one of the bigger indie shows I've ever, relatively speaking, attended. So seeing that and getting those reactions, like, all right, yeah, I'm a pre-show guy. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. I still don't. It was just for me, I was happy to even get in the ring, whether it be pre-show, main show, opening match, main event. It didn't matter. I just wanted the opportunity, which I think a lot of people now, and I hope there are some younger wrestlers listening, not saying that I'm necessarily an old vet, but a lot of wrestlers do. And I could think of a good handful of people off the top of my mind that have this thought process where they're like, oh, I should be the main event. I should be doing
There's
this.
a lot of people like that in the podcasting world and the wrestling world and the podcast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't get it yet, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and it's like I try as somebody to say, hey, go this route, and a lot of people don't listen to me.
Yep.
And there's a reason why I'm doing over 200 interviews at this point, and I'm slowly continuing to grow a certain way.
Hey, we're building you up, baby. We got a long way to go here. We're gonna build you up. We're getting to the top of the charts.
So it's a lot of people think they should be at X when really they're not ready for it.
Exactly, and it's like you have to cut your teeth. You have to win over an audience. You have to understand how to get over with an audience, connect with them. Like for me with Nova, it would have been easy for me to say, oh, well, I'm a champion up at ACW in Pennsylvania. I wrestled so-and-so. Why am I not on the main card here? But it was just something where, for me, I understood. I was new to the area. I was new to the territory, if you will.
And we're going to talk about that with Prime Time because that's fascinating. But I do want to talk about the
sorry, we're going off on a tangent here. I'll reel it back in.
The second match was cool because we had Booty and the Ace, which was Eric Royal and Faye Jackson. And obviously, Eric Royal, I don't know how big Eric Royal, but I know Faye was big at this point. You had Pop Culture, which is Jason Cade. I'm not as familiar with Jason Cade, but I know it's Vetta Scott, who was big in Nova at that point. The Aristocrats, which was Alley Cat. Everybody loved Alley Cat. And then you have MJF.
Yep.
And MJF at that time was starting to become big. but nobody really knew how big he was about to become, and he is arguably the greatest heel in wrestling right now. It's
Big
him
time.
and Baron Corbin are the two greatest heels, and what he did on Brody's tribute show was insane.
So nuts.
And what made it even better is he acted even worse on Twitter, which was brilliant. It's brilliant. And then obviously you and Willow, and everybody loves Willow. Everybody loves Willow.
Absolutely.
So what was that like? That was an elimination match, and you got some serious star power within the next 6 months after. Really, you have some serious star power in that ring.
Yeah, it was incredible. And for me, I feel like I glossed over it too quickly, but the first match was incredible because I was supposed to be tagging with Barbie Hayden. But I
love
guess
Barbie. I love Barbie.
Yeah, I've only gotten to meet her I think once, maybe twice. She was super sweet when we spoke the first time. She was awesome. But yeah, I guess she had travel restrictions or issues, whatever it might have been at the airport. And so Willow was there, I was there, and it was kind of just like hey, should we do this? Like, we don't want to just not wrestle. So like I was saying before, the happiest accent ever. Willow is incredible. She was so kind, so generous that night, and I had a rib injury. What's that?
Her riding partner was Solo, right?
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I guess Solo was there that night, and yeah, those two are super tight. The Bird and
I love Solo too. I have her tail.
They're both awesome. So incredible.
I have Solo's tail in my room.
No way!
It's great. I have the pink and white tail from which she was I guess a fox creature.
Oh man.
It's old school, because I interviewed Solo. We're going off on a tangent, but I think this is way more interesting. So I interviewed Solo very early on, I think 13 episodes into my first podcast. And that was 4 or 5 years ago. And it was one of those things where very different character. He wasn't the bee. He wasn't the bull she is today.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't jacked the way she is today.
She is shredded right now.
She puts you to shame.
I won't even dispute that. Yeah, she could kick my ass.
There's a saying. I forgot what I tweeted out. She was on a show, and I said, I'm not going to go do arms day with this person. I'm not doing leg day with Solo.
Facts. Big facts.
But continue about this match,
dude. Yeah, we could go on about Solo. But no, so we were both there, and we're both hey, let's do this. And I had this rib injury, so she was super cool about what moves to do, what moves to take. The energy was just, it was perfect. The chemistry was there, and I vibed off her, she vibed off me, and everything just really worked out so nicely. It was easy to call the match together. Oddly enough, our gear matched perfectly, which wasn't intentional. It just happened to work out. It was perfect. So we were extra stoked about that. And I don't know, just coming out, the reaction, similar to what I was saying before, everybody knew her. So everybody, they saw her and they're like, yeah, all right, let's go. We're cheering for these two. Because me as a relative no name, they're just I don't know him, but he's Willow. So yeah, let's do this. And all the credit to her. She helped put me over as much as she could, whether it was just I don't know, putting an arm around me or getting the crowd hey, this guy, we're a team. So we had a lot of fun in that opening match. And then going to the finals, like you were saying, with all that star power, it was a challenge because we only had so much time to actually put that main event together. Because literally the 4 teams that were involved, they all had a match prior to that. So everybody trying to communicate with each other after their first match, before this match, it was a little tricky. But we pulled it off. We had a lot of fun. I think we were the second team eliminated. We weren't the first team out, so that was good. But I just, again, that night, for me, it was just a massive learning experience because, you were mentioning, MJF, he was growing. He was one of the top indie guys at that point. You have Eric Royal. He was and still is a pretty big indie name right now. Faye, she's incredible, and everybody knows like Veda Scott. Like, I want to say she did Ring of Honor for a while. I mean, it was just a lot of fun for me. I was just able to kind of be myself, really just kind of float along with everybody. I'm like, all right, what are we doing? We're doing this. Okay, cool. See you out there. And we had a blast. And that night afterwards was a great time when we all went out. There's like a bar in the area, like 2 blocks away. And let me tell you, it got weird. So I'll leave it at that.
And I'll counter that, and I've never been because I'm not in the crew, but wrestling weddings, I've heard, are very, very interesting. And
So much fun.
there could be drama, there could be other issues that occur.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just say Total Divas is a tenth of what happens whenever there's a wedding on Total Divas. That's a tenth of what happens. Is a good way to put it. From what I've heard, what I've known, certain people leak like Jersey does, so that's all I'm going to say. Jersey leaks like a sieve. So there you go.
Well, even to that point, let me digress a little bit because I feel like I glossed over him. With Savage Gentleman, Victor Benjamin, him and Lady Frost, I was at their wedding because the chemistry that him and I had from day one of meeting through like the 4 or 5 matches we've had, it was instant chemistry. I love the dude to death, and Lady Frost is incredible. She is like really building a name for herself. She's very talented and quick.
The masked wrestler has legitimately pivoted her career. And which was going this way and was going up, and that thing made a left turn and then shoot her up 15 steps.
Big time.
Because nobody knew it was her. Nobody in their right mind was ever going to say it was her. People were saying, oh, that must be Solo. It was clear that it was a woman. It wasn't that hard to figure that out. But nobody knew it was Lady Frost.
Yeah. And they've been doing so much together. She's been killing it, and he's been working his ass off since he got neck surgery, and it's just incredible to see, even from that, how far he's come. We've trained together a bunch as well, so...
Did you buy peanut butter?
Oh, my goodness. Are we doing the peanut butter thing? Are we putting it on our eggs? Is that what's happening right now? I love peanut butter, don't get me wrong, but my goodness, Victor Benjamin.
He's got an odd fetish. We're going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a peanut butter fetish. I'll tell him that to his face, too. I hope he's watching.
Oh, I'm going to send it to him. Don't worry.
Please. Easy with the peanut butter, brother.
You don't have to go through a jar a day. But I definitely want to talk about action in primetime and Flying V, because I think that's where you've really started to shine. But I do want to mention 2 things that I think are super important. And one of them, I believe we are all adults in the room, and that is you had a match in Chikara.
Yes.
And you faced Still Life with apricots and pears, and I love Still Life. Still Life is, I believe, one of the breakout superstars of 2020 and is going to be even better in 2021. And that was the Young Lions Cup title. And as I stated, putting all what happened with Chikara aside, and no matter where you stand on it, Still Life is amazing. And so what was that match like? Because obviously you are in Chikara's territory. Chikara has its own environment. It obviously had prestige, and I think some of it still does. So what was that entire thing like, even to have a match there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you phrased it that way, because the summer prior, so I'm actually in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they had a show at this bar, Tellus 360, which was literally a block and a half from my apartment at the time. And I reached out to them. I wanted to work with them, whether it was just going back to the whole pre-show thing. If it was pre-show, I can help set up, tear down, whatever they needed. They respectfully declined. And in the moment, I was somewhat hurt. I took it personal, which maybe I shouldn't have, but I think it helped drive me a little bit more trying to reach the next step. Like, that was then a goal of mine. And wouldn't you know it, kind of coming full circle, they did like this stadium series where they, did like minor league baseball parks where they were having these shows. And Yeah, it was pretty awesome because Bryce Remsburg, AEW referee, he was kind of doing the booking for them, and he lives right down the street from me as well, which is hilarious because Lancaster, Pennsylvania is a hotbed for professional wrestlers, if you didn't know. Because you got Bryce Remsburg, you've got Tim Donst, Adam Cole, Delirious from Ring of Honor. There's a lot of wrestlers here.
Britt Baker around there. Britt Baker.
Britt Baker, well, she's from Pittsburgh, but dating Adam Cole, so she's in Lancaster here and there. But yeah, it's pretty wild. And yeah, Bryce had reached out to me basically asking if I was available. I could be wrong here, but I want to say it was like relatively last minute. I don't know, it was like a week in advance maybe. And of course I was like, yeah, boom, sign me up. I'm all about this. It's going to be great. And it was at the Harrisburg Senators baseball stadium, which was awesome because they did it like right outside in the concourse, but it was where the like the seats, when you exited your seat, you like hit the triple like the, I guess the second floor, the third floor concourse. So people were like looking over, watching down on us. It felt like this real cool environment, super nifty atmosphere, and I had a blast. Still Life was so easy to work with. They were so easy to communicate with. And we really hit it off. I think everything that I pitched, they were pretty on board with. Everything they pitched, I was pretty on board with. And I think as a result, we had a pretty fun match. I really enjoyed it. And it was so easy. It was such a good night. And we had a lot of fun. And yeah, we actually trained together a little bit then thereafter as well. So yeah, I've got nothing but good things to say about Still Life. Their work ethic is pretty incredible, through the roof, and super talented artists as well. I'm not sure if you've seen their art at all, but they do some good work.
I also know Still Life is very, very nice and very cordial to Big Game Leroy.
Oh, yeah?
The matches, when Leroy drops his switch, Still Life, instead of breaking it, hands it cordially back.
So polite. And honestly, it doesn't surprise me.
It's an amazing moment. It's like the best moment, and I'm sure there's a gift of it somewhere on Twitter because it's like the best gift ever, and it's happened like 3 or 4 times at this point, and like can't believe that. It's the funniest thing, and like I die with laughter because I think it's funny.
I got to see that then. I haven't seen it yet, so if you find a clip or a GIF, send it over.
Oh, it's great. It's great, and I just love Still Life, and I think Still Life is gonna be a massive star. I really do.
I hope so, and hopefully they bring me with them.
Yeah, and Blank too, because I love Blank.
Oh yeah, Blank is awesome.
I just want to give Blank some crayons, though.
What's that? Give
Blank some crayons.
Is that an inside joke? I'm not sure that I get that one. I'm sorry.
It needs some color. Blank mask. So Blank had a death match and had like a pumpkin yard death match. And I was so upset that Blank didn't use crayons as a weapon. It would have been so fitting in so many ways.
That would have been good. That would
have
been
good. Brilliant. It would have been so brilliant. And so like instead Blank used candy corn, which is still funny. Nonetheless.
But I just got to use what's in front of you.
Yeah, so sometimes you're limited in what you can do and what you can't. And then the other promotion I want to talk about, which is probably either the top or the second top indie promotion in the world, and that's you had a match in Beyond in the Discovery Gauntlet. And that's a big deal for a variety of reasons. Obviously, Christian Casanova is killing it right now. That guy is
so damn good.
Great on Beyond. Amazing on Beyond. His matches with Alec Price, who's coming on Monday, are great. His stuff in Limitless is great. Obviously, we're going to talk about Anthony Green in a second here, and you working with him, and he's doing well. But Christian Casanova picked up the championship really from Anthony Green in Limitless. And obviously, then to even go further beyond is one of those top promotions on the indies. And then also it's in front of all these people. There's some serious money. IWTV put a lot of faith in Beyond.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of money went into Beyond that they paid.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's going to sound like I'm kissing this dude's ass, and I don't want it to sound like that, but I just can't give him enough credit. Christian Casanova is incredible in that ring. He's so comfortable. You said the word smooth earlier. That's the best way to describe him because he makes everything just look and feel effortless, which isn't something that necessarily a lot of people can do.
Even when he wants to be cringy, it's so smooth.
It's literally like, I can't believe it's not butter. Like, that's how good it is. And yeah, like, to be on the Discovery Gauntlet, I was lucky to have done that Beyond, even thought of me and that my name even came up in conversation. So that was pretty neat. I was very excited about the opportunity. And then let alone getting in there with Christian Casanova. It made for a good night. At some point early in that match, I banged my head and got pretty damn loopy at one point. So that was kind of weird. But for the most part, like, I can't give enough credit to Christian for his abilities in the ring and how good he made me look, because that was 90% him.
And one of the things about Beyond that I think also is really important, and it's helped you a lot, is that Beyond has a huge audience. And Uncharted Territory obviously attracted a lot of people. For an indie show, it's probably one of the most watched indie things out there. It was live, 2 hours of wrestling, and obviously put a lot of light and opportunity and spotlighted you. And on Twitter and other things, and I'm sure other promotions picked that up as well. Just by nature of just being out there, when you have, I don't know how many people watch Beyond, but it's at least 20,000 I would make the argument for. In some capacity per episode, if not more. And I'm being very conservative when I say that. I have a feeling it's a lot more than that watch it. So obviously, when you have a lot of wrestling fans watching an indie show, it's a big deal.
Yeah, big time. And even to your point, I was just grateful to even get that opportunity because of the reach that they have. I did a camp with them. I guess it was that winter, 2 Februarys ago, maybe 2 Januarys ago. And I think that's kind of how I even got into communication with them. But yeah, it was just a privilege to have done that. And it was a whole new challenge because the fans up there in Massachusetts, they don't just lose their shit for anything. You got to really wow them for them to be impressed. So to get any sort of reaction, any sort of pop, I was like, all right, what stops do we got to pull out to get something from these people? And I like to think that hopefully I drew them in a little bit. Whether I did or didn't, it was still something that I can look back on and say, you know what, I had that chance. I had that opportunity. I did what I could with it. And hopefully down the road, we can have another one and make some more magic happen. But that was definitely a unique opportunity that I will not soon forget.
Yeah, no, and I love seeing you in Beyond, and I thought Beyond was great for you, and I absolutely was ecstatic throughout the Discovery Gauntlet and everything that happened in Beyond and everything like that. And now I definitely want to talk about Flying V before we get into prime time.
Sure.
Flying V is not a wrestling company.
No.
What they are is a theater company that has done combat sports, has done other cool things. And then obviously Jason wanted to do some type of wrestling event. And so they brought in a bunch of interesting people. Obviously you, Tim Donst, the Grimy Scots you went against, obviously Logan Easton. And I love Logan. I think Logan is unbelievable. And he's one of also those guys that's underrated. He's been wrestling for over 10 years.
Big time.
And then I think people forget how good he is, whether they like him or not like him. And then on top of that, you had some serious battles with the head of the class. And
those guys suck. I hate the head of the class.
Yeah, but you had Anthony Green with you, and that was great. That was great. And so and the reason why I bring up Anthony Green is now Austin Gray.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what sucks for all of us wrestling fans is that we don't get to see Ava anymore. Wrestle up in Boston, but that's not the point. So what was that entire experience like, being brought into Flying V and really getting to face all those people? Because a lot of them are also in the DMV area.
Yeah, and that's the biggest factor. A lot of them are that's the DMV is such an awesome cast of humans, whether it be the wrestlers themselves that are at those shows, the fans, the community as a whole, and just everybody involved in the shows, whether it be the promoter, the booker, the people on commentary, the refs. Doesn't matter. I love every promotion, whether it was Nova, Prime Time, Flying V. Doesn't matter. All of them were amazing, and I cherish all the people that I've gotten to interact with in all of those. But Flying V was pretty cool because I met Jason through Nova. He was doing commentary for them. Amazing on the microphone doing commentary. I love listening to him. He sets the scene, paints the picture so well. And I'm appreciative for how well he's made me at least look through his voice when watching some of these videos back. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing Flying V because that was a whole different world for, I think, a lot of us. Doing indie wrestling isn't necessarily the most glamorous of professions, if you will, but they treated us like royalty. We had top of the line locker rooms. The ring was incredible. The black box theater, the way it felt was like old school, like NWA wrestling shows or like WCW, like closed circuit. Like
See, I've never been to the Black Box Theater because my first Flying V show was up in Maryland.
Oh, the University of Maryland, which, by the way, they had a silent disco that night. And
that was an insane show. And
so much fun.
What was crazy is that literally anybody could have got a seat in that show, and it was
For
free.
sure.
And what was crazy is that there's all these college kids, and they missed the best thing first.
Yeah, right?
Because what they should have done is, like, all those freshmen, if they went to the wrestling show and they actually knew about the wrestling show, oh my God, they would have had so much more fun.
Night of their life.
Because it was such a good show and it was insane. And then, Bryce, that was, I think, because I went to Bryce's seminar earlier on for non-wrestling performers.
Yeah.
And so and that was great. And then, Logan was great. There's a photo, and I'm sure Flying V has of Logan choking me out.
Oh, no way.
And it's like the funniest thing, and it was great. It was amazing that entire show was perfect. And like all those freshmen went to that silent disco, they missed the best thing first.
Honestly, I was saying we should just put the ring in the middle of that silent disco. It would have been nuts. They would have been blasting out to some crazy music, watching some wild wrestling in front of them. It would literally just be like their brains would explode.
It would have been so good. It would have been such a brilliant move. And if Flying V ever comes back, I'm just saying.
Hey.
And I'm still upset about Flying V because they were bringing Shaza. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Shaza's pretty incredible too.
She was on my show.
Yeah, she's so nice.
Everybody, like my list is so big. Everybody who's watching and checking this out, so you're not part of that list. But I digress. And I love Head of the Class. I love them as a group. I think it's one of the best things that Flying V has pushed out there, and I think that other companies and other promotions should adopt that entire position because it's such a good faction.
And that was like what you had touched on at the beginning. It was like that was my main feud, was going back and forth with Head of the Class. Donst and I had a match against the Grimy Scots, which was a lot of fun. That was our first tag match together, and I think him and I are both on the same page. We want to do more tag stuff together, me and Tim Donst, because we had a blast, and I think creatively we meshed well. But yeah, with the Head of the Class, it was pretty neat what they were doing with that entire group. And then when we had that tag match with, like what you're saying, with Anthony Green, it was me, it was Donst. Who else did we have? We had, who all was on our team? Do you have that written down by chance?
Yeah. Isaiah Frazier.
Yeah, Isaiah was on
Joey Ibanez was on there.
Yeah, that's what it was. And no, that was a lot of fun because that was another match where it was like Survivor Series style, 5-on-5 elimination, who's doing what, a lot of moving pieces. But it's just hilarious that we get to go out there and play and people get to like join in on the fun with us. And that's all that night, from my recollection, that's all it was. We were out there having a blast. We were trying new things. Commentary, if you watch it back, I want to say Bryce was on commentary, and like he was having fun with it too. Like, you could just feel it. And I think that's what makes wrestling so great is
That was pretty much like 2 days after Christmas.
yeah, it was.
So I was tempted to go, but I wanted to stay because I was still in DC at the time. I'm like, oh, do I go to this? Do I go back 2 days early?
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
For New Year's, and then I just said, I'll just watch it on my computer. Much easier.
There you go. I mean, hey, you got it on your computer. Why not? It's like you don't have to go to every NFL game. You can watch it on your TV.
And even just like that Maryland show, to even talk about that, because I think Flying V was a lot of fun. I found that Flying V was more fun than Primetime. And I love Primetime. Primetime's a fun environment, but I felt like Flying V was a lot of fun. And it was like I felt more relaxed, like the shows that I went to, and even them on Twitter, I felt were more relaxed and were the definition of fun. At that Maryland show, I got a Savage Gentleman story. Somebody yelled, "Your cosplay sucks" to him.
Was that you?
No. I know who it was too. And
I was like, you yelled that?
it would have been brilliant if I did, though. And I was and I know exactly who yelled it. Savage Gentleman knows who yelled it.
Oh, so everybody was in on this.
So it wasn't that hard to figure out who yelled it. And but this is the idea, and just to talk about that, I don't think that could have happened at a primetime show. Like I really don't think it could happen. I just think that it's a different vibe, and so that kind of into primetime pro wrestling. So obviously, primetime pro wrestling was great after Nova fell apart, and Nova almost screwed up the collective in 2019, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Nova was a big sponsor, was the last sponsor for it, and GCW stepped up. Was expanding.
That's pretty wild.
Into the first show out of DC, and then everything happened, and then the collective didn't happen because of Nova, which is crazy if you think about it. Yeah, not that many people know that story.
No idea. Had zero clue, but thankfully it all worked out because the collective has blown up.
Yeah, there's a reason why WWE wants to trademark it.
Oh, I didn't know that either. You're shedding some light right now.
Well, I'm biased because I own WWE stock, but you could all hate me later. but anyhow, what we're talking about primetime. So obviously primetime, Nova fell apart. Primetime comes, it's Lolo and Gator. Gator did some work for Nova. Lolo did work for Nova. I think Lolo was doing some ring announcing.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Actually, Lolo announced me, and I forget which match, but one of my matches, Lolo brought me out to.
And then that basically fell apart. Then I guess the two of them had an idea, and then Primetime was built. And well, let's talk about how we got a champion. So, because the first champion was Yo. And again, I'm saying this in the nicest way possible. We are all adults in the room, and we can talk about wrestling companies and keep the politics and what's happened. I think the two can be separated.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about primetime. So obviously, your first match was against O'Shea.
Yeah, it was.
And O'Shea's a big guy, and
O'Shea's a big boy.
And he's been on my podcast / show, and I love O'Shea. I think O'Shea is amazing. I think he's also extensively underrated. So why is
that? It doesn't make sense. He should be like rated for what he is. He's so damn good. He's so talented. I don't understand why he's still underrated. It doesn't make sense to me.
I have a theory, but I don't want to state it publicly.
Okay, that's fair.
I have a theory, but O'Shea's a businessman. I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
If anybody's seen Synergy, they understand the reference with KTB and O'Shea. Gotcha. There's a reason why O'Shea didn't lay hands on the person who was signing his paycheck. which is probably a good policy to have everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
The person who's signing your paycheck, you probably shouldn't hit with a chair. I'm just going to throw it out there.
No, that's not normally a good idea.
But what was this match like? Because in many ways, and O'Shea said this, that the two of you are like oil and water.
He said that?
He also said that well, what you don't understand is that when you two wrestle, he's digging two graves.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're taking our rivalry to like next levels. And that's what I appreciate about him so much, is because when we communicate to each other what we want to do, we're normally on the same page. And when you see us in the ring, yeah, oil and water, that's the perfect description, because we are just so dissimilar. We've got nothing in common. It's like just visually, and then personality-wise, it's just way different ends of the spectrum. But that's just what people are supposed to see. Behind the scenes, dude is incredible. I love his work ethic, for one. I love everything that he has been able to overcome and still accomplish at this point. I know he has recently gone through a tough time with his wife, so I hope he understands.
And to even talk about this, for those who don't know O'Shea, I'm going to catch everybody up really quickly. O'Shea moved from pretty much down south to the northeast, had a really good job. I think he was like a fire chief or like a fire lieutenant. Like, had a really good job, was high up in his fire department. And O'Shea was a firefighter, in case you didn't know that. And then he and his wife basically went on this journey, moved up northeast. He got a better job so that he could go train at Ring of Honor and do stuff and get more polish on him, get a few more coats on him. And they took that journey. When you talk about people who love wrestling, he took something very much, and he took a big risk. And I also should mention this as well. So did Lady Frost and Savage Gentleman.
Gentleman, for sure.
And O'Shea has, and obviously O'Shea's going through a tough time at the moment, but O'Shea didn't get screwed. I think Savage Gentleman and Lady Frost did. I want to make that distinction clear, but obviously that guy has a massive work ethic, and it's crazy.
Big time.
What he's gone through. And so obviously you have that first match, and then he gets himself disqualified, and we're going to talk about where that eventually led, but I'm going to let that linger out there for a few things, because you had another match following this, and that was against Ariella next. And
oh, yeah.
I love her too, and she's great, and she's going to come back on for a second round, and she's good, and she's great also. So what was that like? Because I think this was your first intergender match, or one of your first.
Weirdly enough, it was my second, and the first was 1 week prior with Ariella at Pro Wrestling Magic, which was hilarious to me because I'd never had one before. And then, of course, 2 weeks back to back, boom, boom, there we are. 2 intergender matches. Those can be tricky, especially with different crowds. Everybody's going to react differently because you're really pushing the boundaries, really stretching the limits on, how people view things. And it can definitely be a challenge to make sure you're getting this story across, but also not necessarily pushing it too far where people are like, hold up, that's weird, that's not cool. So Ariella's amazing. I mean, we hit it off immediately when we met back I want to say at Nova, actually, kind of just keeping these promotions in the same loop here. But yeah, we've always had, everything's been so easy with her. So when that match rolled around, we talked pretty quick, pretty brief, and we're like, hey, we got this. Let's just go do our thing. And so we did. We got through it. I think throughout the day, because I want to say there were a couple intergender matches, the crowd was kind of like 50-50, where they were slightly uncomfortable. They didn't quite know how to absorb it and really understand it.
Also, to add more to this, this was Primetime's first show.
Yes.
As a new promotion, intergender wrestling was starting to catch on and starting to gain steam. And obviously, it's been around much longer than this, but there's been a shift in wrestling. at this point, and probably in the last 4 years, I think it's safe to say that intergender wrestling has become a bit more normal. And it's had leaps and bounds. And I'm treading lightly politically here for a reason, because I'm not exactly sure when that shift happened, but it's relatively newer. That this is now what you can expect on an indie show. 5 years ago, you couldn't expect that.
Right. And even to take it back even further, somebody that I was lucky enough to train under for a while, Lufisto, she really set the bar pretty high when it comes to intergender wrestling because she's been doing it for years, especially when she goes back and talks about her CZW days. Like she really made a standard for women wrestling men and holding their own and being able to show like, hey, we can hang too. So
That Sasha Alexander match, I want to say, I think really is the bar with her.
yeah, oh yeah, and she's so incredibly good. I'm waiting for somebody to give her a call. Like she's got to get her big break some point here soon because she's been doing it for so long. She's so damn good. She's so well respected. Everybody's familiar with her. Like, what's the holdup? So
she should be in a promotion, and hopefully she is. But she should be in H2O's Queens of Combat. She should be in that, and if she's not, I think it's robbing her. I think it's robbing her. It's her, Tara Calloway, and Nikki Knuckles are the three women who are hardcore, just by nature.
Big time, for sure.
And then, yeah, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say I don't know if it has to do with her being back in Canada now, if that's playing a role or not. But either way, I'm hopeful that something good will come of this here soon.
Yeah, I really hope for it too. And then let's talk about the final match, which is you and Isaiah Frazier, and the two of you have known each other dating back, and MCW action, obviously, which we didn't really get to talk about, and then a few other promotions because Isaiah has been around massively also in the DMV area and has been traveling with you and has been in the same circles, and he's been in like the finals twice at this point with Primetime. Can't get the W. Can't get the W.
Yeah. He needs to get one here soon because he's another guy who we've had a few matches together. I want to say I could probably say it was actually 3 in total. 2 were tags together and then 1 against each other. And when you talk about chemistry and you look at wrestling and you just see 2 people in there that feel each other and they just get it. They know what the other person's going to do and the other person knows what they're going to do. That was us. That day, clearly what you just said, we both had 2 matches prior. So I'm going over one match with O'Shea. Then I'm going over another match with Ariella. And then it's like, oh, shit, we've got, 15 minutes?
What are we going to do?
What's that?
Right? What are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, mind you, it's like 4,000 degrees in this building. So we're both sweating profusely because we're so hot. We're dehydrated. We're trying to grab some water and Gatorade. Like, all right, yeah, what are you thinking for this? What are you thinking for that? And it just got to a point where it was like, dude, I know you. Like, I've seen you work enough. Because, like you were saying, we've been on all these shows together. We've watched each other so much. And we had the finish planned out, and we had a spot in the beginning planned out.
You had nothing else.
Outside of that, it was just kind of like, hey, let's just communicate. Let's just do this in the ring. Let's kick it old school, as they say, and I'll see you out there, brother. But there are very few people I can say that I was as comfortable with doing that as I was with Isaiah. I don't know. It just, maybe it was serendipity because everything just felt right that day. And especially with him, I felt so comfortable with him in that final. And I'm lucky that it was him that I was in there with because everything went so smoothly. To this day, put it on the record, throw it out there. It's my favorite match that I've ever been a part of for multiple reasons, whether it was, being in the main event at the inaugural show, becoming the first champion. Everything went as smooth as it did. But then also bringing it back to the community, that building was fire that day. And I'm not talking about the 4,000-degree weather. Like, everybody felt everything. And you could, like, I got goosebumps at one point when I don't even remember when it was, but like I could just feel their energy coursing through me. And that just elevated it that much more, which made it that much better, at least in my opinion. It made it that much more fun. And it's just, I can't put it into words how amazing that day was, let alone just the final by itself. It was so incredible.
And then jumping off of that point, let's start talking about your title defenses and O'Shea rivalry.
We're not talking about that. O'Shea cheated, all right?
And the road to it. the road to it, because it's super fascinating. Because obviously Jaden Newman got involved, and he's from Action, and obviously Primetime had a relationship with Action. And so he got involved, and there was tag team wrestling with Jaden and O'Shea, who know each other and are very close, some Southern comfort, if you will. Mm-hmm. And obviously you teamed up with Tim Donce. And so that happened. And then let's talk about that lumberjack match. I brought my mom to that show. I was in the front row. I was sitting. And that was an intense match. That was intense.
Fun.
I mean, O'Shea went after lumberjacks hard.
Dude. Those lumberjacks, they needed to be there because that shit was getting out of control. So, yeah, our battle, like O'Shea and I mean, I can't say enough about him and that rivalry, which I'm still hoping to continue because, like I just alluded to, homie cheated in the past, like 2 or 3 matches that we've had together.
We're going to talk about the second match in a second. I don't want to ruin it.
Okay, all right. I won't jump the gun. But, yeah, I mean, that lumberjack match was just fun because of the people that were there, like the people that were involved. Like Effie was there, Blank, who we were talking about a minute ago, was there.
Savage Gentleman was there.
Savage Gentleman was there, who I jumped on at one point, going off the top. I didn't give any cares. I just jumped on everybody on that side. But yeah, that match was a blast, just because I think that really it showed the progression of mine and O'Shea's battle back and forth, because he was super sour in, the inaugural show in which I won, and his attitude got the best of him. So he got disqualified because he didn't know when to stop. And then we go to our tag match, and he decided to throw me into a concrete wall. Not cool. And we move forward from there. We have the lumberjack match, and we needed them because otherwise, who knows where the hell that match would have wound up. I would have been throwing him into beer barrels, going through windows, the parking lot, you name it. Doesn't matter. We needed them to keep us there where we were.
So to even talk about that, because, it's kind of – there's 3 things that I thought were cool. I thought it was cool to get everybody another spot on the roster out there. I thought from just a cool professional standpoint, you have Effie coming out for a second match, for instance. Not a second match, but you have him coming out in a second spot. You have Savage Gentleman, you have Blank, and you have all these people who might not have won their match, and they're getting another opportunity to get their name out there. And so I thought the lumberjack match in many ways gave people an opportunity to shine. And when you jump on with the lumberjacks, where they're like picking up O'Shea very nicely, or I think like you sort of almost like fell slightly backwards, and the good lumberjacks caught you.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. O'Shea was punching me off the apron. I fell. Thank goodness they were there, because they saved my ass. They all caught me, pushed me back up, but I think they forgot that O'Shea was just staying there waiting for me, because then he smacked me again with another one. So,
but I think that was cool. And then also, it's an indie show, and we have a lumberjack match. I mean, it's something that is done on the indies, but it's not done all that much. And so obviously it was very different, and it adds a different dynamic to the entire match. It adds a different feel to the match. You have more bodies around. And then at some point, the lumberjacks all just started beating the shit out of each other, which is great.
Totally.
Every lumberjack match should go.
Yeah, and it's another way to get everybody involved. And I just appreciated how giving everybody was, because some guys are like, I'm not going back out there for that. I'm not going to do that. But literally everyone on the roster was cool with it. They were more than willing, and they were happy to be out there. and we had a lot of fun. Like, I specifically remember at one point I was laying on the ground with all the good guys, all the baby faces, and it was after O'Shea did something to me. I forget. But we were just kind of like goofing while we were on the floor waiting for like the next spot. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but it was just a blast.
Nobody's coming after me or you, in which that.
Yeah,
So-
the thing is, I'm like kind of a hypocrite when it comes to kayfabe because, like, I want to maintain kayfabe, but at the same time, some of these things, I don't know. I just get caught up in the moment talking about it. So either way, it was a fun match, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
And then obviously O'Shea cheated. That happened.
Obviously, because he knows he can't beat me.
So then he sort of wins. Crowd is all pissed off. I'm clapping. No offense.
Come on.
Yeah, I love O'Shea. I think O'Shea is great. Then I think you went to the back. O'Shea's celebrating, and then you said that was like bullshit, or you said something to that effect. And then that set up a whole interesting situation for, I believe, it was January, I want to say.
Yeah, so O'Shea was making his way to the back. I was still in the ring, defeated. But at that point, my emotions were just like running on high. And for me, I just had to get it off my chest because at that point, clearly I'm mad. He beat me, but he cheated again. And I wasn't happy about it. So, yeah, to your point, what you were saying is I did tell him. I told him to shut up because he never does. The dude just talks constantly. Does not ever stop. So I think I said something to the effect of bullshit or damn it, whatever it was. But especially with, like, that's another thing. If I can go on like a mini tangent quick. When people swear on their promos all the time,
It loses meaning.
it takes away the effect of it. Somebody like Nick Gage can totally get away with it because he's a certified badass, and I believe every word that comes out of his mouth. And I will never mess with Nick Gage because he's such a G. But yeah, for that moment, it felt right. I was pissed, and I think it had a lasting effect when, for the first time, like on a live mic or even in a promo, Breaux Keller says a bad word. It's like, whoa, that's going to cut deep. And I think, at least in that moment, it had the effect that we were going for. And yeah, like you were saying, it's set up for our cage match in which O'Shea cheated again.
Let's talk about that because that show, I think it was January, right? If memory serves correct, or was it February? I don't know which one it was. It was before Bush vs. Gore was on the table, but it was before Bush vs. Gore.
Yeah, it was that like beginning of the year. Then Bush vs. Gore was in the spring.
Butch vs. Gore was in March, so it had to be January, February. But
yeah,
it's been less than a year since COVID hit, and everything blends into one day.
I get it.
It's so crazy. But that entire show was insane. We had Ultimate X.
Yep.
We had Ultimate X. I don't really care what we call it. It was Ultimate X. We were calling it that because that's what it was. Brilliant concept, super vibe. We had the tournament that was taking place. And then we have this steel cage.
Yeah.
And so this was really cool because we now have a steel cage being set up. And it's not like, a steel cage WWE style where the cage is lowered and then they sort of solidify the cage. This cage was being brought out piece by piece and assembled. And so obviously this was a very different, entire engaging situation because when do you ever get a steel cage on an indie show? It's something that doesn't happen. So obviously you're a part of that. So what was that like for you that Lolo, Gator, they trust you, they trust O'Shea. Obviously you're challenging for a big spot with the title. It's not some gimmicky bullshit shit. And you're in a steel cage and supposedly nobody was supposed to come out.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was another one where, interestingly enough, I had never been in a steel cage match, but I think it was like 2 weeks prior. I had another cage match up here in Pennsylvania. And then, of course, 2 weeks roll by, and then I'm in another cage match. So,
you go like a couple years not having a certain match, and then boom, like 2 back-to-back, whether it be the intergender or a cage. But yeah, it was incredible because, like we were saying, O'Shea and I have great chemistry, and I think we were both on the same page with what we wanted to accomplish that night. Having Gator and Lolo really trust us that we were going to put on a show, because let's call it like it is, that show went on for a while. It was a long show.
That show was long. That show was long.
It was long. So by the time we got out there, the crowd was gassed. Like, they were exhausted. They needed something to just get them to the car to drive home, really.
It was a long show, and you know where I was sitting, right? I was sitting next to like 2 of O'Shea's friends who flew in and were like filming. It was a total accident. So I was like clapping when all this was happening for a few reasons. I love Jaden Newman. And obviously I think Lolo and Gator also trusted Tim Donch and Jaden Newman, because they played a huge role in this also. It was a big pop, you know. All of a sudden, O'Shea's getting beaten down, and we got this turn, and we're like, oh, man, you know, Bro's going to win this thing again. And he's beating down O'Shea, and O'Shea's in trouble, and O'Shea brought in, like, a weapon or got a weapon. You know, oh, shit, it's not working now. And then, obviously, Jaden Newman comes out of nowhere and does stuff, and then sort of big pop.
Tied me to the cage. Can't be doing that. Of course O'Shea's going to win when that happens.
And then obviously Tim Donch came and had backup, and I think that'll also help. And so now we actually have like this massive pop. So what was that like? Because that was sort of the biggest pop out of the entire thing. And then obviously the zip ties.
Right. And that's what made it fun, because it wasn't just about us. It solidified, you know, like what do they call themselves? Not the Kings of the South, was it? It was like Jaden and O'Shea.
Southern Comfort. I think Comfort.
Southern Comfort. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Southern Comfort. So it solidified them as like a unit, and I think it really put Donst and I together as a team. And I think everybody bought into that because, of course, we all had that tag match, you know, the month or 2 prior. But then, you know, like really showing like, hey, this guy has his back no matter what. So Tim Donst came out to help me after Jaden came out to help O'Shea, because O'Shea was scared that I was going to win and he needed a hand. That's neither here nor there, though.
But it also solidified the heel position, you as a face, in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Like it really drew the lines as to, oh, like maybe even if that was somebody's first show, they're like, oh, okay, like we're really buying into this storyline, because like if you think about it, our first match was at the inaugural show. O'Shea gets disqualified. He's got this deep-rooted issue with me because he got DQ'd and I get to go on and be the champion. And then we have these matches, and then there's the lumberjack match where you could still hardly really keep us in the ring because shit was spilling over everywhere.
Yeah.
But then what needed to happen, we got to stay locked in somehow, put us in a cage. And I think the fun in that was what we were able to do with what we had. We had a tired crowd after a long show, and we had to do something that wasn't done yet. Even though you had all this talent on the roster, you had this Ultimate X match, which was like a unicorn with all the crazy stuff they were doing. It was just like unheard of. So we really had to deliver. And I think what often gets overlooked nowadays in professional wrestling, and I feel very strongly about this, is a lot of people try to do flashy stuff. Oh, this looks cool. Everybody's going to react. Everybody's going to remember this.
Flippy shit.
What's that?
People want to do flippy shit.
Flippy shit, exactly. Yeah. Jim Cornette, that flippy shit. But more so than anything, at least in my opinion, which carries a lot more weight when you're going to actually look at a match, look at a show, what your memories will tell you, is what was not just done physically, but how did it make you feel? So if I watch a match, cool, oh yeah, remember that guy did like that backflip onto the floor? That was pretty sweet. But then you look back and you're like, remember how much that one dude like really hated that other dude? And he was very bitter towards him. And then he had like his boy come out, and then his boy came out, and they had to help each other.
like I feel like that is what people really hang on to. And
Yeah.
cool, yeah, flippy shit works here and there. Hell, O'Shea powerbombed me off the top of the damn cage. No flips, but that shit hurt. But I just think
to even go further, and one of the things, and it obviously got a little bit complicated because Butch vs. Gore took place right after. I think it detracted where this was building a story. And nothing against Butch vs. Gore. Butch vs. Gore was brilliant. I think it was very important for the industry in a lot of ways, and it gave a lot of people who have been screwed over and have been given not an opportunity. The fact that it was on IWTV was super important. And I obviously sponsored the Effie match with Faye. Nobody else sponsored anything, so that speaks about where money is and people stepping up. So I mean, which is that I could go on a rant for that for an hour by itself. But what I think was one of the things that was being, I guess, pushed out there and discussed and thrown out with this match, even more so, is that we're now getting this story. We're now getting factions being built. We're getting you as the good guy, and people who are associated with you are the good guys. And now at this point, if somebody like you face, Savage Gentleman, it's clear that he's the bad guy and that he may not be teaming up with O'Shea. And I feel that if Prime Time lasted another bunch of, months and if they were still operating today, I feel like you would be that story position and that driving force. And I think that's what this match really did, looking long term. I think Butch vs. Gore detracted from that and put a break on that for a month. And I think it was a big problem with what happened. And it's tricky because it is a balancing act. And I get what Lolo and Billy wanted to do. And I think they were doing something. I think they did it well. But I also think that it wasn't the best thing for the company. Because you look at O'Shea's match with Billy, there was no story, and you're coming off this amazing story with you. And I love Billy. And I don't have a problem with, Butch vs. Gore per se, but I just felt like we have this red hot story, and then you just sort of took a whole detour away from it. And I think that's the most damaging thing to this match. I really think it. And I'll call out Gator, I'll call out Lolo, I'll call out Billy on it. That was a mistake they made with their championship.
Yeah, and it's so tough, especially.
Yeah, I know it's controversial what I just said.
It is, but also, hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I respect the hell out of that because to a degree, like I do agree. That sounded like weird that rhymed. But yeah, there was more that I would have wanted to do going forward. I felt like there were other options that we had. I
felt there was another 3 matches that needed to happen.
At least, and it's like, and there were variables to that as well because you had Jaden and Tim Donst both then at that point who, they were intermingled with, this storyline as well. So there was more that we could have done with them, with me and O'Shea, like what you said with Savage Gentleman. Even he could have inserted himself into the picture. There were endless things that we probably could have accomplished. And at the end of the day, it's just unfortunate that Prime Time.
And then what should have happened at the very end is that there should have been a fight in action, not with where it should have been, which would have ended the feud, is the teaming of O'Shea, you, Tim Donst, and Savage Gentleman, and Jaden would have turned on O'Shea. And that's how that thing would have ended, and it would have been a primetime versus action showdown tag team match in Georgia.
That would have been damn cool.
With AC Mack leading a team. Hence would have set up AC's Mac opportunity at Butch vs. Gore had he won.
Let me just say this, by the way. I am so itching to wrestle AC Mack.
I want to wrestle AC Mack too, and I'm not even a
wrestler. AC Mack's legit, especially like he did some cool stuff in Beyond as well, by the way.
It's been some amazing stuff. His run in primetime is unbelievable.
Yeah. AC Mack's legit.
He makes people hold his belts.
It's stupid how awesome it is.
It's great. But that's my take on the entire match. And so I think that it's unfortunate because I think that it could have gone so many different ways. And I think it's just unfortunate Prime Time fell apart before they really could have explored this. There's 3 more matches that should have happened. There is a lot more blood between you and O'Shea that needs to be spilled. whether that's actually physical blood or mental blood, for lack of a better word here. And so that's how I feel. And I think that brings us up to everything that's been done and beaten down. But having said all that, obviously COVID has done damage to primetime. I highly doubt primetime is coming back. I think that ship has sailed, much like Nova.
Feels like it. Unfortunately.
I think Jakara at some point is going to come back. I would not bet money against Mike Quackenbush. I've said that privately, and I'm saying it publicly. Again, if I get flack for it, that's just what I am. It's amazing I still get interviews. I digress right there, but I am curious how COVID has affected you, because obviously 2020 has been a crazy year, and I know that you've had shows here and there, but I know that you haven't been wrestling as much as you had in 2019.
Yeah, big time, and that's what's been so unfortunate, because it's a tough balance in wanting to, continue my wrestling career, but also have respect for the people around me and not being too selfish in terms of the bookings I'm taking, what I'm doing when I'm on, if I'm on the road, I'm leaving this building that maybe in another state they can have more people than others. And I don't know, it's been tough. So like you mentioned, I've been doing shows here and there. Most recently, I want to say it was November, I did a show up in Connecticut. And it was a lot of fun. PAPW, Paul Roma's spot, great crowd, awesome roster. And that was another fun match as well. It was what did I do? It was a 6-man tag, I think. 6-man tag. Doesn't matter. It was a blast. But yeah, it's just been tricky. So for me.
And what makes it tougher also is that, so obviously Beyond has done a lot of stuff in Atlantic City. GCW's done stuff in Atlantic City. For a few reasons. Jersey doesn't really care about wrestlers, and they don't fuck them, and they don't torture them. Other states do, very much. And then on top of that, shows outside are statistically safer than shows inside.
For sure.
It's just the way it is. And now, obviously, heading into November, December, January, February, I would say even March, you can't have a show when it's 20 degrees below, or you don't know if it's going to snow.
I don't want to be on that show.
ICW had that problem where they were doing shows outside and it was raining and power was out, and they had to move it into a barn.
That's so tricky to navigate.
And they turned it into a pit fight, and apparently they have doubled or tripled their revenue because of pit fight or X.
Good on
brilliant on a dime. And then they ran a show, they ran another show, and then they ran they turned a bad situation into the greatest blessing ever. But even still, it is super, super difficult to navigate that. And so I'm curious where you think even just venues are going, and tabling, even making sure that your family and who you're around is safe, even fan base and all that stuff, because it's tricky. Because I think people don't understand, and I don't want to get too much into the business, but obviously IWTV money or streaming service money is super helpful. Definitely helps. If you're streaming and that you're getting a piece of that, and then or the company's paying you or whatever arrangement you have, definitely helps. But also you do need a gate. And that's one of the things that Primetime suffered, is that they didn't get paid yet for Butch vs. Gore. You have 500, 600 people who are at the minimally paying $20 a seat. It's a lot of money. And, I'm not going to ask you your entire contract, but it's not like you're getting a $10,000 check every time you wrestle.
That's a fact.
But, the gate definitely helps to cover your paycheck and your salary for the night.
Absolutely.
And so obviously when, Primetime doesn't get their gate from brown paper bag tickets, it's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then Primetime's not the only one that has had that problem in the middle of COVID. So I'm really curious what you think all that's going. Because obviously with COVID and being safe and being on top of people, it's not the easiest thing to navigate. Not to mention that there are a bunch of wrestlers. Wrestling is a physical sport. I'm going to stop talking because I would like you to answer.
No, I appreciate it. Because it's so tricky to navigate. And It's just such an interesting climate that we're all living in right now. And I think as much as I would like to dive in on, what I think could happen, what should happen, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It's just going to be what it is moving forward. And that's something that I am learning to accept, because as much as I want to voice my opinion, or as much as I want to say how I feel,
So I don't want to put you in an opinion, but I guess what I'm curious is that what is it like for you looking out? Because I'm looking in, and the people that listen are looking. We're looking in. So I'm a fan, and I'll tell how I feel. I don't want to be around 500 people in a venue for another year at the minimal. Even if vaccination, I'm not ready to jump back in so quickly.
Totally. Yeah, and that's very fair and respectable.
It's bad enough when you're around 500 people. It's rough enough in general. Nothing wrong with people. I like people. I think, and it's fun, and obviously you want a bunch of people to be there, because obviously it helps to make the promotion stay healthy. It helps cover bills, and essentially the fans pay your paycheck. To put it bluntly, you don't owe us anything, but we are definitely supporting when we buy a ticket. I don't think that's a secret, but at the same time, I don't think that, even though you're in a ring, see that's where, like, I'm curious is that, but you said that there's a bunch of people in a confined space in the back. It's like, and look, I mean, there have been wrestlers who have gotten COVID. Jaden Newman got COVID. It's like, if you're wrestling, and people from the collective got COVID. So when that took place, and that was under a controlled environment, so obviously, and so I'm just like wondering what you feel about all of this, because it's clearly tricky. And so, I mean, as a fan, and then I've stated this before, is that I'm not ready to jump in and go in person to a wrestling show when legitimately I got 3 inches between me and another person.
Right. And the best way I can answer this is to give you my personal experience from that last wrestling show I did. I know I probably looked a little goofy to some other wrestlers in the locker room, or maybe to some other fans. But at the end of the day, it's like I was saying before, I'm looking out for, like, me and mine, because I want to make sure I'm healthy. I want to make sure I'm not bringing anything home to the people around me that I love and care about. Because by and large, when you go to these shows, people are strangers. You don't know what they're doing on their free time. You don't know who they're hanging out with. You don't know what they have, what they're going to spread. So I had probably 40,000 disinfectant wipes with me. I wore my mask the whole time, whether I was outside of the ring in the locker room, whether I was in the ring during my match. It didn't matter. I had my mask on. And I just wanted to make sure that I was being respectful of the people around me. Not necessarily for myself. Sure, if I get it, I'm willing to take on the risk, and I'm confident enough in my health and my youth that I can fight it and beat it. It has shown, though, that people can't necessarily do that. I don't want to take it to, my parents, my sisters, my brothers. I don't think that challenge is worthwhile, because it's something that I can easily avoid. If, I'm going to do a show, I'm going to be particular about it, because I want to make sure, I'm in a locker room with people that.
And you don't want to bring it to a fan either.
Not exactly. I mean, the list goes on.
This is also how I view it, is that it's bad enough if a fan gets a fan infected. If it can be traced that you gave me COVID, and like we're not even talking legality anymore, because I don't know where the legality comes in, but that's not a good image for you. That's not a good image for the promotion. That's a bad image for wrestling collectively. Because
and it takes over, like, even more than that. Just like the local community, like, they see me in the newspaper, like, oh yeah, however many people from this wrestling show contracted COVID, and it's like, well, all right, now that's probably gonna be banned for even longer now. So. And it's such a ripple effect, and it's so unfortunate, because everybody's got their own opinions on it, and I respect everybody's opinions on it. But for me, if I'm going to do something, I want to be smart about it. If I'm going to be in a show, I'm going to take care of myself, and I don't think anybody should judge me, because at the end of the day, they're safer as a result of that. So if I'm wearing a mask, if I have these like disinfectant wipes, if I have disinfectant spray, sorry, maybe I look goofy. I might look like a nerd, but hey, I'm just doing what I know to be safe. Even though I'm already taking the risk of sweating on another human, like rubbing up against them, breathing on them. I'm going to do what I can to at least make that situation as safe as possible.
And a lot of all this that I think people have gotten wrong, this is my opinion, is that I'm not wearing a mask for me. I'm not disinfecting for me. I'm doing it for you. The whole point of vaccinations, for those who don't know, you don't get a vaccination to help yourself. The whole point of a vaccination is to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's the whole point of vaccinations. It's not to help you. If when somebody else gets a vaccination, they're doing it for you. The reason why you get a vaccination and the reason why you wear a mask is not because you're protecting yourself. It's you're protecting the other people around you. And that's been the biggest misconception of it, is that, and it's been the biggest failure with all of COVID collectively, is that everybody thinks that you wear a mask to protect yourself. It has nothing to do with protecting yourself. To some degree it does, but when somebody wears a mask, they're protecting you. And when you wear a mask, you're protecting them. And so it's been a big just clusterfuck of how that's actually been presented. It's the same thing as vaccination. Is that, and it's just mind-boggling. And people can disagree with that theory. Doesn't mean you shouldn't wear it, but you should understand why you're wearing something.
Right.
And why you're doing something.
It's frustrating when people are selfish enough to be like, man, I don't need to do this, man. Whether you need to or not, doesn't matter. Just show some respect for the people around you. That's my biggest thing. Just be respectful.
And obviously, I think wrestling is going to change tremendously. I mean, I think it's going to be like this. And I'm a pessimistic person. You're the exact opposite. You seem very optimistic, which means you're going to be wrong eventually, and I'm going to be right eventually.
One of these days.
But I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself, because I know you got a bunch of stuff. I know that you got a Twitter. I don't know if you have a Facebook page. I don't know if you have an Instagram. And I know you do have an Instagram, because that's how I got in contact with you. I know that you have a Twitter, because I just got out of Twitter jail, which is a whole different discussion. I'll explain, everybody. I know what everybody's thought is. Oh, I was tweeting about politics and that Twitter's purging everybody. No, I was over tweeting about ICW, No Holds Barred. I want to get that off the record here. Legitly, they sent me the message on that. So I want to make that perfectly clear that I was overly tweeting about wrestling, and they're just so backed up. Twitter, that took them a week to get back to me. So you could go blame Danny D'Amato for that.
Freaking Danny.
Well, anyway, I figured that you have a bunch of social media, so I figured I'd give you an opportunity to promote yourself. Do you have merch? Because merch is super important right now with lack of wrestling. It's a really good way how to help subsidize your favorite wrestler. And do you have any shows upcoming and whatnot?
Yeah, so merch, I got to set my game up on that. I've got some cool stuff, but in terms of trying to get it, just send me a DM. And the DMs are easy because I keep it all super fluent, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I don't care what it is. It's all the same. Breaux Keller, BREAUX space Keller, KELLER. It's that simple. Breaux Keller, all energy, baby. I'm coming with the finger guns. I'm coming with the energy, and we're going to have some fun with it. But yeah, I'm on those 4 platforms: Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So feel free to reach out, hit me up. I'm always trying to respond to people as much as I can. And yeah, I've got t-shirts, I've got stickers, I've got wristbands, I've got pictures, you name it. We've got some fun stuff. So by all means, shoot me a DM, put something on my Facebook wall, throw me over an Instagram message, tweet at me, throw me a Snapchat, doesn't matter. I'm all about anything social media related. I got to step that game up too, though. Like, I think the last time I put something on Instagram was for Halloween. That's weak sauce.
Maybe that's why you're not in GCW.
Probably. I got to start putting up some more like highlight clips, doing some cool shit. But even to that point, wrestling shows, like I said a minute ago, I'm kind of being particular in which ones I'm doing. This COVID thing, COVID alone has made wrestling pretty scarce. There's not as many shows as there once were, like last summer, for example.
Yeah. It's starting to get back up. It's starting
to get back up, but even still, with like these spikes in COVID, I've already seen
it's going to go down.
Yeah, I've seen
I guarantee you that we saw a spike throughout the summer, and then we saw things happening, and then obviously now things are starting to sort of slow down a little bit, and there's a lot of unknowns that are about to happen, and then it'll eventually get back up at some point. It's just a matter of when. I think 2021 is going to look a lot like 2020.
Yeah, it's just a big waiting game at this point. So for now, I think at least in pencil, I've got one show. It's in March. It's Atomic, ACW, Atomic Championship Wrestling. Check them out on Facebook, Atomic Championship Wrestling. I think their website's Atomic Pro Wrestling. Either way, it's a great company, great promotion. They've got like a pivot share, I believe, as well, so you can see all the matches. But yeah, for now, that's what I'm doing. I would love to work more and do more shows, but it's just a tricky situation to navigate. I mean, if certain promotions, hit me up, or if we're able to make contact, sure, I'm going to be more open to doing that. But for the most part, I'm just kind of staying safe, staying home. I just got a new puppy, a little pug puppy. His name's Sturgill. He's the man. That's my little dude. I've got a sweet little man cave up here that you can see. So it's like chilling. I got a nice 70-inch TV. I can watch some TV over there. I don't need to be wrestling too much right now. My body's recovering. It's been through a lot. As opportunities present themselves, I'll think about them, and I'll likely take advantage where I can. But for the most part, I'm just staying in shape, staying ready, staying on top of my diet, staying in the gym. I'm just doing the things that I can do in order to be ready for when the door, does present itself and to open up for another show.
Well, on that note, we're about to wrap up, but I've been saying this to everybody who's been on this show, and I'm going to say it again, and I cannot keep saying it over and over and over again until everybody gets it, that you have to support people you like economically. That doesn't mean you have to pay their mortgage, but what that means is that if they have merchandise, whatever it is, if it's a shirt, it's an 8x10, it's wristbands, it's a cameo, it's posters, they got a cool product, or they have an affiliate link of supplements or something, definitely consider buying from them and buying their merch. Wrestling is a great example of this. Buy a t-shirt. Buy a t-shirt. It's super important, and it goes a long way because, as I stated and I mentioned with Butch vs. Gore, I really was a fan of that show and I wanted to support it, so I actually put my money where my mouth is. And there was a bunch of people who are fans of Primetime, and they didn't do that. And so that speaks volumes. Money speaks volumes. Now, I will say this, and I'm the first person to say it, is that if you don't have money, or you're struggling, or you're taking care of your rent first, your mortgage first, your family first, you're saving money to make sure that your family's going to be okay, making sure you have 4 walls and a roof and electricity, water, shelter over your head, please take care of you first and foremost. But if you're in that circumstance, social media is free. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I don't know how many people still use Snapchat, but all 4 of those things are free, and you could follow somebody for free, comment on their stuff, share their stuff, and engage with them. And that's also just as important. You could tweet at Breaux Keller and obviously say, hey, I really enjoyed this match, just saw it. Super, super helpful. You could like a tweet. Legitimately, you could just like a tweet. You don't
Pretty easy to do.
You could like an Instagram post. Pretty simple to do. And so at this point, I mean, if you're not supporting somebody economically and buying their merch, you should be following them on social media because it is free and it is super important, and it's more important now than ever. It was important before COVID, and it's ultra important now. And I cannot stress that enough and get that across because it does matter and it does make a difference. And chances are, if you tweet at a bunch of people, there's a good chance they might follow you back. It's a good chance they might follow you back. So please seriously do that because I don't know what I can say to convince anybody anymore to do that. People that I like and that I want to support and that I pick and choose where I throw my money at, but I definitely follow people on Twitter. I engage with them and I tweet at them because that does make a difference with promotions extensively. So seriously, everybody, please go, A, if you can, support people economically, but B, more importantly, support people social media-wise. And if you're supporting somebody economically, that doesn't exonerate you from also following them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, You got options. You got options, and you only have to do one. You can do all three or four with Snapchat, but you have to do both. And so on that note, I'm going to let you have the final word.
Oh, the final word. I mean, you pretty much just sealed the deal with all of that. I don't have much more to add except for I appreciate your time. I appreciate the viewers that are watching or that are going to watch. This has been a good time. I really appreciated having time to just converse and really catch up on some of this wrestling stuff because, like we just mentioned, it's been so scarce lately. It's been so far and few between, whether it be shows, whether it be just, I mean, really anything at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's getting late anyway. It's about my bedtime. I got to wake up and go to work tomorrow. So I just appreciate it. This has been a great time. I've had a blast discussing all of this stuff and just really trying to like reminisce a little bit on what wrestling once was. And hopefully, I think if we stay positive and really keep like a glass half full type approach, that we are going to have some good wrestling coming up here in the future. Not that it's not taking place now, but ideally we can get more people out there, put butts in seats, and keep the wrestling community alive because right now it really needs it. I mean, you're seeing these empty arena shows. You're seeing 12 people at a show, like you said, but I think one of these days we're going to get it back. It's going to be a little bit. It's not going to be a fun ride, but once we get to the end of it, we're going to be happy that we made it.
Well, hopefully you're right and I'm wrong.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I think that's the best place to end right there.
Yeah, I would agree. But seriously, Andrew, thanks again. I mean, this has been a good time. I've really appreciated it.
Well, thank you for being on and agreeing to do it because I love interviewing wrestlers.
That's what I'm here for.